Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
James, welcome to the show. Once again, you've been on a couple years ago. I'm so excited to have you back. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing terrific. Thank you so much for having me back. Last time I was here, I had such a good time that when we crossed paths, I said, "Hey, I'd love to come back," and here we are.
Awesome. So what have you been up to since the last couple years?
Yeah, no, since the last time we chatted, we've expanded our operations west into Vancouver. So now we have a headquarters in Edmonton, a headquarters in Vancouver, and this is the year where we're going to open a Kelowna office as well. So we're basically just trying to provide more opportunities for our clients. I mean, before it was all about cash flowing properties in Edmonton, but now we've got pre-sales and developments in Vancouver, and then the Kelowna vacation property investment situation is really, really appealing right now. So we want to go where our clients want us to help them out.
Amazing. And for those people that may not have heard you from the prior podcast, just a 30,000-foot view on what it is that you
Yeah,
do, your strategy when it comes to real estate.
totally. I'm a real estate investor first and foremost. I bought my first income property over 15 years ago, and I just loved real estate so much I couldn't help myself and became a realtor. And since then, I've built a portfolio with single family. I own a bunch of apartment buildings. I've developed and built a bunch of infill houses, triplexes, fourplexes. And now I'm actually getting into the vacation property realm. So just closed on a stunner of an Airbnb in the tourist destination of Gastown in downtown Vancouver. And we're analyzing properties up in Whistler right now and just trying to pick up some stuff that has that nightly rental potential, and that'll be fun. And then on the real estate side, we've got, like I said, our headquarters in Alberta, our headquarters in Vancouver, and got an amazing, wonderful team of realtors that work with me. And, we just help a lot of people buy income properties in the residential space.
Amazing. So I always love recreational properties. One of the reasons is now I've got the resort, and so I'm always interested in hearing about what you bought from a recreational standpoint and what kind of
Yeah,
is it waterfront? Is it a cottage? Tell us a little bit more about that.
totally. It's so the Gastown neighborhood is right near where all the cruise ships let off in Vancouver. So often Gastown gets to be the first point of contact for people coming from all over the world to Vancouver.
Nice.
And so we thought this is a great neighborhood to be a part of. It's really fun. The property we got is on the large side for Vancouver. It's 1,200 square feet as an apartment, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And so that'll give it huge rental potential. And just because of the neighborhood it's in, this is like the brick beam metal warehouse district. So we get to
Nice.
really play with that design in the space. And then it's also a block away from both stadiums. So I think for those peak weekends, I mean, Beyonce's coming, Coldplay's coming, Guns N' Roses are coming. I mean, these are massive concerts where there's huge demand for tickets. So those signature weekends I think are going to do really well for us being walking distance a block away. And then if the Canucks get their act together and playoffs happen, that'll just be another great peak season for us. So we're really excited with this property because it's going to be, I think, really easy to rent out all times of the year. It's not going to be super seasonal, which
Yep.
flattens out the cash flow curve.
One of the things, I mean, because short term, mid-term are really my favorite rental strategies, right? You've got your like investing strategies and you got your rental strategies. You can do combinations. And over the years, I really, not only for the cash flow got into short term and mid-term rentals, but also because of the additional control that we have anyways in Ontario. Are you seeing any bylaws come into place where you're investing, whether it's, Alberta or BC? And if so, maybe just give us some insights on that.
Yeah, BC is very similar to Ontario where it's very tenant friendly. And so again, the shorter medium term, you're always cycling the tenant. So you're not committed to a long-term tenant that could be very difficult to remove if they're a problem tenant. So
Hmm.
that makes that strategy appealing, not just from a cash flow perspective, but just like you said, a control the property perspective in BC as
Yeah.
well. Really exciting bylaw change in BC is that the provincial government actually removed the restriction that allows strata councils to have age restrictions as well as short-term rental restrictions. So now and rental amount restrictions. which
Mm.
means in the past, stratas could say, we only want 10% of the units in the building to be rental, or we don't want any sort of short-term rental under 6 months, under 12 months. Well, all those restrictions are gone. So it's opened up a much wider amount of inventory for that medium-term rental, which is super exciting. So that's just starting to settle in and affect people's buying decisions. But it's creating opportunity because the change is new, but the market is slow to react, and there's new properties coming up that will work for that strategy. Alberta, I mean, that's the one thing that's super exciting about investing in Alberta is it's the most landlord-friendly province in the country. So,
Mhm.
there's problem tenants in Alberta turn into quick solutions, and that's why the long-term rental strategy from a cash flow perspective as well as just a management perspective really works in Edmonton because, I mean, we see cases all the time where somebody doesn't pay rent on the first, and you can have them out in 30 days and have the place re-rented for the first of the next month. That's an ideal case scenario, but it's not too far off. I mean, vacancies don't last long, and problem tenants can move really quick in Alberta, which gives us a lot of peace of mind as landlords, especially if you're from out of province.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of Ontario landlords that are moving over out there. Again, there's pros and cons, right? I think in terms of like future appreciation over many years, not in the near future, because who knows what's going to happen then. But over many years, I think Ontario's always kind of had the head start on that in the past. But they've had the issues with the whole landlord tenant board. And you're getting, if you've got a non-paying tenant, if you're saying 30 days, even if it's 60 days, we're looking at 9 to 12 months,
Yeah,
for non-payment of rent. Or really anything, like if you wanna sell your house in Ontario and your tenants are refusing to leave, you've gotta wait essentially for the board to actually grant the eviction, and that could be 9 months on its own. By then, you've
oh
lost the
my
sale
god.
and you might get sued. So, there's definitely some pros and cons. But, I've always, been intrigued with the Alberta market because of that. Again, there's pros and cons to every single market, and you guys have quick cycles, of up and downs, and are you gonna have the same lift over the many years? I don't know. That's hard to say, but you compensate with you still get some cash flow and you still have that, landlord friendlier, province, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think your read of the market in Alberta is correct. Like it doesn't necessarily grow as aggressively from an equity perspective. So, with our presence in Western Canada, the BC market performs very similar to the Ontario market. And with our Western Canadian clientele, it just allows for diversity. You get
Mhm.
some equity appreciation properties in BC, you get some stable cash flow properties in Alberta, and that, diversity is what you want in a stock portfolio. It's also what you want in a real estate portfolio. And, with, it used to be, from what I could tell, like a lot of people in Toronto would just go a little bit further down the lake to places like Hamilton where the prices were more affordable. But
Mm.
Ontario's had this massive growth where everything seems to be expensive there nowadays. So Alberta kind of seems to be the next like inexpensive cash flow market that people are paying attention to.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the strategies have to change over time. And I don't know how it was with Alberta, but in Ontario, like back in the day, you can do some buy and holds and they still cash flowed. And now you're like,
Yeah,
you have to create probably 3, 4 units in a property in order for the cash flow, especially with these rates, for the cash flow to be
totally.
somewhat there. And that's even questionable sometimes. What are you seeing in terms can you do like a single family out in Edmonton or Calgary that still cash flows, or are those days gone as well?
With the new interest rates, everything is a struggle for cash flow right now. So I mean, we're watching people employ various cash flow mitigation strategies. If you're a more established investor, there's nothing wrong with putting 25% down to deleverage a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, or, going from long term to medium term with a little bit of furnishing helps out. But in terms of what cash flows and makes sense in Alberta, one of the nice things about both Edmonton and Calgary, Edmonton in particular, is it's a very secondary suite friendly municipality. So getting a permit for a secondary suite in a house, duplex, row housing, townhouses, you can turn a fourplex into an eightplex. And the turnaround time for the permit is months instead of potentially years like in BC. And I think in Ontario, it's a little bit longer too. So what are people buying to cash flow? It's typically houses with secondary suites or duplexes with secondary suites, triplexes with secondary suites, or fourplexes with secondary suites. The nice thing about the triplex and the fourplex with secondary suites is most lenders will recognize that as 6 units or 8 units, which then allows you to start playing in the pool of commercial lending, which has its own series of benefits as well, but it is still technically residentially zoned property. So you get to double dip by having the advantages of it being a residential property while still being able to play with commercial financing.
That's quite interesting. And now you're an investor, you're a realtor as well. How many people are coming to you from? I'm just curious, from Ontario or other markets out our way.
I would say pre-COVID, when you guys had very affordable markets in Ontario, very little. We've always had tons of Vancouverites look at Edmonton because of the price differential and the cash flow differential. But since Ontario went through its growth cycle, I would say probably about a third of the Canadian investors that reach out are actually people from out east Ontario that are looking at Alberta as a marketplace, which is fascinating. It's totally new to us. I mean, we love working with all Canadians, but this is the first time in my 15-year career where we get regular, 4 or 5 times a week, people reaching out from Ontario, curious about what's happening in the Alberta market. So that's
Mhm.
kind of neat. I mean,
Mhm.
we've got a very strong relationship with BC, but it's fun building a relationship with Ontario as well.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. So, obviously with the oil and gas industry and this whole Justin Trudeau transition out of that, I will say that Alberta has a really good um version of our Ford. And I think she's got the greatest interest of many Albertans, which is nice to see. But from a industry standpoint, like, are
Yeah,
you, because one of the things that you always worry about investing in, the, I guess, the markets that are very oil and gas driven is, the ups and the downs and the industry trends. And, looking back at like 2015 as an example, like you guys felt it
we
quite
sure
a
did.
bit.
Yeah.
And in Ontario, we didn't feel that dip. So like, what are your thoughts on like where that industry is going and then in relation to real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2015 was rough, 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 rough because it was, we hadn't had an oil cycle in, almost 10 years. So everybody was really excited. There was a lot of optimism, and then boom, oil hit -20 a barrel. I don't even really understand how you can have a negative price on the stock market, but that was bad for Alberta. And a lot of Albertans who are business owners in the oil industry started repurposing their industrial space and infrastructure towards manufacturing. So quietly, kind of in the background over the last 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of Alberta's oil infrastructure has been repurposed into manufacturing infrastructure, which has nicely diversified our economy. Of course, as the energy sector is starting to really show some life, that's going to be great for Alberta. But in that waiting period, people didn't just sit idle and lose money. They were looking for other avenues to utilize the existing infrastructure to keep the economy going. And so there's a much more diverse Alberta than there was, last time we went through an oil cycle. And I think that's going to soften the blow out the other side. There's also just a whole bunch of, I mean, the Vancouver effect is now spilling over into Calgary and up into Edmonton. I mean, a great recent example is that show, The Last of Us, got filmed in Edmonton. I mean, 5 years ago, filming something in Edmonton would have been unheard of. You would have done it in Vancouver, but
Mm.
Vancouver's running out of warehouse space and industrial space, and the movie industry, Hollywood North is now moving into the prairies as one example of one industry that's coming over. There's also a lot of logistics coming into Calgary and up into Edmonton as well. Because again, the cost and limited availability of warehouse space, it's actually becoming cheaper to warehouse product in Calgary and then drive it back to Vancouver when it's needed instead of warehousing it in Vancouver. So, Vancouver's become such a behemoth that Calgary and Edmonton are getting a little bit of residual benefit from the more affordable space available in both of those cities. So while we're still very dependent on oil, and this latest oil cycle is going to be very, very good for the economy and very, very good for real estate values, um, I do think Alberta's economy is a lot more diversified than people historically think it was, just because we had to. There was no oil economy for a few years there, and
Hmm.
there was just a no quit attitude amongst a lot of industries in Edmonton and Calgary. So we now have a bunch of repurposed infrastructure that's going to be good for the economy, heading into the late 2020s and 2030s, I think.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. So let's just say, for example, somebody is, not from, let's just take Edmonton for an example, for example, because I know every
Yeah.
market is a little bit different. Like, what can they expect to get that you would consider a good opportunity that some of your investor clients have recently purchased? Like, can we get an idea of what that even looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what's called our LRT, light rail transit, which is like the metro line, like the subway, SkyTrain, whatever you call it. And there's an expansion wing of it going out into the west end of the city. So, in most major markets, when a transit line is going in, you want to snag property close to it because that's where the next value surge is going to happen independently of market forces. And in the west end of the city, you can buy new built houses in old neighborhoods. We call them infill in Edmonton. I don't know if you guys use the same lingo out east, but so infill property, basically an 1,800 square foot house with a 900 square foot basement. So like 900, 900, 900, two level, 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom unit upstairs, and then a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit downstairs with an attached double garage. Brand new. So rip down the old house, build that. Those will go for about $550 right now. And the gross building rent would be about $3,500 or something like that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So so that's cheap for a brand new build.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're talking, like high-end builder specs. So that'll be your granite, laminate, stainless steel,
So
nice
that's
light
$550
fixtures.
for the new build, or that's $550 for the new build plus the plot of land, technically.
That's $550 for the land, the house, everything. Like you could pop on realtor.ca and see a couple of these guys for sale right now.
Okay. So that's interesting. What about like multifamily, like bigger, like commercial residential type of thing?
Yeah, there's a huge disparity in price point depending on the asset class. Like if you want to buy, a 50, 60-year-old walk-up building that is suffering and needs repositioning, you can pick that up for like 80 to 100 a door. You got to roll up your sleeves, that's the bottom of the spectrum, but there's always opportunity to renovate, reposition, put in new tenants, work the cap rate. And then on the higher end of the spectrum, we've got, brand new or newish 5-year-old kind of institutional grade condo products still in the like mid 200s per door. And we're not talking to a lot of institutional investors per se, but I would say the sweet spot that a lot of out of town investors like, because old comes with old property problems, lots of repairs and maintenance, lots of tenant turnover. The 6-plex, 8-plex product that I was mentioning earlier, those guys, we just sold an 8-plex, brand new, nice neighborhood, it for 1.76 million. So, that thing, even with the increased interest rate, still cash flows quite nicely. So, depending on what you're looking for, I mean, you could also find a crusty old 16-unit building for 1.8 million. But I would argue that most investors will have less headaches and an overall smoother ownership experience going with new inventory.
Well, I guess, yeah, especially if they're from a different province altogether, right? And
Yeah.
managing and stuff like that is like, you gotta have, I'm sure you have a team in place that you can recommend and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's, like for me, I love the old stuff. Like that's what makes the most sense, I think, in Ontario, but I think we're in very different markets, and that's, that's important to understand.
We just sold a property that, might be up the alley of a lot of the listeners. It was a 15-unit apartment building near one of the universities, and it was grossly mismanaged, and it had a fire, and the fire happened because there was a meth lab that exploded, which is all kinds of fun. I mean, it was something out of a TV show. And so, the fire was put out, the meth lab curators were shooed out by the police. Building was mostly vacant, property was all boarded up, and we transacted that for 62 a door. And, the after repair value of that could be in the 120s, maybe even low 130s, depending on what the final rental amounts could be. And the person that bought that is actually from Ontario. So we referred them the contractor, the property manager. They're pretty fearless. That's a huge undertaking, very capital intensive project, but the rewards are there. So those types of deals do exist. And, I think we did keys last Monday actually for that thing. So,
Nice.
That stuff exists too.
Yeah, and I think from like that new MLI Select program from CMHC makes it attractive to, take some of these older buildings or do new builds in the multifamily realm, because if you get certain points and that kind of stuff, I mean, you could be looking at 40, 50-year amortizations depending on the points. You could be looking at up to 95% loan to value on the refi. Like there's some really good opportunities to play in a different market. And this is a new program. Like I want to say it was just 6 to 9 months ago that the MLI Select program came out. And I think it's like an opportunity of the, present and the future.
I'm a huge advocate of the MLI Select program. I'm actually building an 8-plex myself using MLI Select right now. And exactly what you described, 50-year AM, 95 loan to value. The cool thing about the MLI Select program is without getting too granular, but there's the affordability requirement,
Hmm.
the energy efficiency requirement, or the accessibility requirement. On the affordability requirement, the way that they calculate that is they take the median household income and then a percentage of that to calculate the rent. And the cool thing about the Alberta market for MLI Select
Yeah.
right now is that the market rent is what MLI Select, because the
Mhm.
median income in Alberta is so high, the discounted rent is actually what market rent currently is. So you don't even take a
Mhm.
hit on your rent using MLI Select in Edmonton right now. Now
That's pretty
that's the window right now. I mean, if rents
Mm.
pop up or the median income changes, that could change, but there's a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool window of opportunity right now to use MLI Select without actually having to take a hit on market rent in Edmonton.
And I don't think that they've defined like how many actual bedrooms in those, so you can do like your smallest units, like your bachelors,
Well, of course, yeah,
as those, that's what you would do essentially,
that's
and
the way to do it.
that's how you get the points. But and then you got to just obviously talk to your mortgage broker to make sure that like your like loan and your exit loan and your debt coverage ratios and all that stuff still makes sense. But
Yeah.
I think it's a great program.
Oh, it's a terrific and it's so nuanced, and because they've made it so complex, there's so many different ways to work it to your advantage as an investor. I was at a networking function last week, and I was sitting next to a broker from Canada, ICI, and she was talking about how there's a co-living aspect to MLI Select, and so she actually had one of her clients buy just like a big old 5-bedroom cabin using MLI Select and they got the land rezoned.
Wow.
So this person bought a vacation property, called it a affordable housing because they rented the units to their friends for an affordable rate. Like there's just so many different
Cool.
nuances to MLI Select that are presenting themselves. I think that what's going to happen is they're going to figure out the loopholes and start closing them, but
Yeah.
there's a window of
There's still some
opportunity.
time, I think. Yeah, exactly. We're still
Yeah.
in the window before they start realizing.
Yeah. So for those of you out there who are in a position to be building some of these smaller multifamilies or acquiring small multifamilies, like there's nifty ways to make it work. And I just love the program. So I'm glad you brought it up because I just think it's terrific. And I was talking all about it last week with the broker.
Yeah, we're doing a building. When you're talking about your meth labs and stuff like that, there's a lot of like I've never learned so much about drugs by watching some of the videos from this building that's empty right now. And actually, just unfortunately, there was a fire. Like, not an explosion. There was a fire because some homeless people unfortunately decided to go onto the roof and warm themselves up outside. So
Oh boy.
yeah, but that one will be a great ML when it's finished. It'll be a great MLI exit, and we're looking forward to it. It's a fun project.
Yeah. I mean, usually the more complicated that it gets, the more opportunity there is to create value. And so, I
Mhm.
mean, that sounds like a complexity to put it nicely. I mean, hobos on the roof letting a fire. But you know what? Problems turn into opportunities in real estate. If you're the one to
100%.
solve a
And
problem, you're doing
e
good.
exactly, exactly. And fortunately, I don't think the damage is that insane. So we'll see how it goes. We're still going through insurance and all that good stuff, but I think it'll turn out well. What are you working on personally as an investor?
Yeah, so I'm building that eightplex right now. That's all of the active work is done, like it's shovel ready. So now all we have to do is babysit the contractor while they build our building for us. And then I just closed on this property in downtown Vancouver in Gastown. So that one's almost a pet project. Like the numbers do make sense, but that one's my artistic outlet for the quarter because we get to have fun decorating it with all kinds of eclectic things and collecting knickknacks and funky thises and cool that's because we want it to be not only an Airbnb but a signature Airbnb. So we've created a bunch of vignettes inside the property that are going to be like, this is the spot you take your Instagram selfie to flex on your friends
Nice.
that you're
Mhm.
vacationing in Gastown kind of thing. So we're just having fun with it. And I mean, we on Air DNA, like the thing would make money hand over fist if we put a bunch of crappy IKEA furniture in it. So to get to be a little extra creative is just a cherry on top.
It is fun. Like the resort that we're doing, it's like all themed differently. So it sounds like it's a similar concept. We want to do something like Instagrammable like you as well. So and I think that's what people are looking for nowadays is like a different kind of experience, right? If they're traveling, if they're taking some time off and they're doing something, it's all about the experience and how, different and unique you can make it. So I think
100%.
I think you'll do really, really well with it. And maybe, how many people does it hold?
Well, I mean, we've got 3 bedrooms, so it could hold 3 couples, up to 6. But, I mean, our preferential range would be like 3 to 4 people. But, I mean, it's a big space. If there were 6 people in there, it wouldn't feel crowded.
Nice, nice. You can do like mini retreats or something out of it, potentially.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to do like a more intimate mastermind, I mean, the living room circle seating space can easily sit 6 to 9 people, just sitting in all the chairs and sofas and stuff. So
Amazing,
that,
amazing.
yeah.
So if somebody is interested in, like Alberta, whether it's Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, like what's the best way to go about? Should they
Oh,
contact you or like can you
please
walk us how
do.
you work
Yeah.
with people?
Yeah. I mean, I love email. So James at mogulrg.com. And you know what? Facebook is I'm a little old school, so that's my preferred social media platform. So if you just look up James Knull on Facebook, you'll find me. It's my professional looking headshot, so it's pretty recognizable. And send me a DM if you want to talk about anything that we've been talking about today, even if it's like how do we use MLI Select. It's a new program, and if you're curious about it, I chat with people every single week about how to leverage the nuances to do projects.
Absolutely. Like I know for our project, like we hired an engineering firm to also help us with all the, energy efficiency stuff so that like
Yeah.
as we're doing things, we're not at the end realizing that we did it wrong, So it's good to have that. Like
Well,
you're gonna have
and
to
on
do a
that
few
note,
things out of the box. Yeah, go ahead.
one of the neat things about British Columbia is a lot of the building codes in BC. I mean, it's BC. We're all green,
Super green, yeah.
super green this, super green that. So a lot of the standard building codes in BC hit most of the energy efficiency requirements anyways.
Very
So
cool.
you don't even have to take a hit on affordability to still get your points for MLI Select building in BC. So,
Nice.
I mean, there's a lot of really cool opportunities in BC for MLI Select as well. It's more difficult in BC because the land is so darn expensive. Hitting the debt coverage ratio is
Yeah,
harder.
right.
But at least you don't have to do affordability. We get it in the green space here in BC.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's a great program, guys. Check it out. MLI Select, CMHC just came out with it. Whether it's through James or talk to your mortgage broker about it, they should be probably in the loop, so they can help you. Whether it's out, obviously in your neck of the woods there, or maybe in Ontario or wherever. This is Canada wide program, so
Yeah.
for multifamily anywhere over 5 units. Cool. So let's do our lightning round. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
Sure.
That's the next parts of the podcast. You're going to answer them in first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1 was your favorite real estate investing book.
I think 97 Tips by Don Campbell.
Okay. Were those the tax tips?
It's 97 Tips for Canadian Real Estate Investors. Let's see if I have.
Nice.
I might have lent out the copy to one of my agents. Yeah, I don't have it on the bookshelves right now, but yeah, it's called 97.
Worries.
The book's
Awesome.
close to 20 years old now, but it is.
Yeah.
It is just like.
Yes.
Oh, I love how your bookshelf's color coded. That's
I know.
That's
I feel like
move.
it's a blue book. That's usually Don Campbell's color. So it's somewhere.
Yeah, Don's got the blue book with the yellow font.
Oh, there you go. 97 Tips for Canadian Real Estate Investors 2.0.
That's the one. That's the one.
Awesome. All right. Not necessarily number 2, not necessarily real estate related, but do you have a favorite podcast?
You know what? Oh gosh. I would say my favorite podcast. I dabble. Right now I'm listening to this. I don't know if you guys have heard of Alex Wormsy. But his podcast has been really, really getting me. It's not so much real estate focused, it's more entrepreneurial, but he's all about AI, lots of good conversations about ChatGPT, and that's a toolbox that I am very enthusiastically using in all of my business endeavors. So to hear him brainstorm on how to use AI more effectively is really, really working with what we're doing.
I just started using it last week. It's actually incredible. I'm a little worried because I'm not that I don't trust the government and this and that, but what are they getting access to? I don't know. Maybe this is just me overthinking and being super paranoid, but it's interesting. It's a cool tool.
Yeah. I mean, if it allows me to do a task that used to take me 20 minutes and 20 seconds, I'm all for it.
Cool. Number 3, what do you do for fun?
I go down the side of mountains really fast. I just got back from a 10-day ski trip in the Rockies, and then as soon as the snow melts, it's time for the mountain bike.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right. Number 4, if you lost everything tomorrow, your assets, your real estate, everything, how would you start again?
I would rely on my network. I mean, you said my real estate and my assets and my money, but I didn't lose my network and I didn't lose my knowledge. So
True.
I think I almost, fantasize about starting from scratch because I wouldn't make any of the same beginner's mistakes. So I think it would be a way faster ascension into the real estate space. But, for me, I think the first thing you need is capital. So I would probably start with like wholesaling, quick turn real estate, that kind of stuff, the stuff that isn't very cash intensive. And then once I built my base, I'd probably just jump right into commercial, is kind of, I think, how I would approach it if I did it all over again.
All right. Great insight there. And last question, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend they spend that $50,000?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's the deadly it depends, because I mean, it's in complete relation to how hands-on or hands-off that person would be. Totally hands-off, private lending is super easy, or invest in a REIT or something like that. But if they want to be hands-on, then I would look for a kind of a smaller deal. I personally don't suggest people to over leverage. So, I wouldn't try to take $50,000 to make $1 million purchase. Use $50,000 to make a 200 to 250 purchase. Do it right. Take the risk out of it, because if you lose your 50,000 on your first deal, the second deal is never going to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Well, that was our lightning round. Thanks for playing. And again, James, where can my listeners reach out and find out more?
Yeah. Hit me up on Facebook for James Knull, or just drop me an email at james@mogulrg.com. Or if you're really like chit-chatting, call me at 780-340-1340.
All right. Very cool. Thank you so much, James, for being on the show. And thanks for sharing your insights about the West Coast.
Oh my gosh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?